So let's take a look at how in the world we got in a place that HUD's enforcement mechanism became litigation, because that's what it is. Raise your hand if you know this guy. Oh yeah, you know this guy, okay. This guy's just a public servant. Craig Gurian founded the Anti-Discrimination Center of Metropolitan New York. Now you can't get any more civil-sounded, civic-minded than the Anti-Discrimination Center of Metropolitan New York. Well, they decided back in 2006 that they were going to sue Westchester County because they said when Westchester County filled out all those forms that had to go to HUD, they weren't honest about it. In fact, they made false statements in there. So there's a part of the law that protects them under that you can sue under that. It's called the False Claims Act. So that's what they went for. They said, well, we're going to sue these guys under the False Claims Act. There's a little catch to the False Claims Act. If I took $1 and I falsely claimed that I was entitled to that, and I get sued and I lose, I have to pay back $3. The only thing is Westchester County didn't take $1. Over a period of years, they took $52 million. So what's 3 times 52 million? Any math majors in there? $156 million. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of money. Okay, so so suddenly the county. And by the way, as far as the counties are concerned, they didn't even do anything wrong. They're just doing what's been going on for decades, and they were. They did nothing different in Westchester County that they haven't done in Marin County, that they haven't done in Miami, that they haven't done all over the United States. Nothing unique was happening here. However, they were taken to court on the basis of the False Claims Act, and they faced a massive loss. Well, in 2009, that case was settled. It didn't cost $156 million, but it was settled, and the court found that Westchester had in fact violated the False Claims Act. Hadn't found him guilty of any discrimination, but they did find that they violated the False Claims Act, and there were several things that they had to do. But the primary was they were ordered to build 750 low-income homes. So, okay, this was this kind of thing off the wall that nobody ever heard of before, a lawsuit, Craig Gurian. I want you to remember Craig's name, because we're going to be coming back to Craig again. He's really a key character in this whole thing, and he's a key reason why this is so successful. The rollout of AFFH is so successful. So CG, Craig Gurian, important character we want to remember. Well, the ink hadn't even dried. In fact, this is what, August of 2009, I don't think the settlement had even been read yet when all of a sudden this happened. Oops, I'm sorry. Got a slide I forgot about here. Rod Sims said, this was so successful. This was so successful. This grand experiment was so phenomenally successful that what we're going to do is we're going to pursue similar goals across the United States. What was successful? We sued the daylights out of Westchester County and we won. This was wow, this is actually, they didn't even sue him at that point. This was just, at that point, it was just Craig, our friend Craig Gurian. The ink had not dried on this settlement back in 2009. Remember, you have to build these 750 homes. They found him guilty of the False Claims Act. When all of a sudden, HUD targeted Marin County outside of San Francisco, California. And when they targeted him, they issued a compliance review. Now, Marin County is very similar to Westchester County. It's just north of a very large metropolitan area. It has a kind of a well-to-do population there and a relatively low minority, number of minorities living there. Kind of the same, kind of a similar demographic. Well, look at this. The compliance review that they filed said this. You don't even have to read the thing. First line. Affirmatively furthering fair housing and, what's that word? Precedent set by Westchester County. The ink was, that settlement, by the way, had not even been read yet, and they were already down and filing these papers against Marin County. Well, Marin County caved. They saw what happened to Westchester County, and they wanted no lawsuits. They caved. The county, and I have a copy of the compliance, it's called the Voluntary Compliance Agreement. I have a copy of that. Voluntary. Yeah. Now, in that voluntary agreement, they agreed to pass an ordinance for inclusionary zoning. They were ordered to overcome community resistance. So if people said, not in my backyard, they said, no, you have to kind of, make that go away. And they were told to pass an ordinance requiring developers to market outside of the county. Who else do we know that had to market outside of their county to import people to fill the houses that they were building? That sound familiar? Yeah. Right here in Westchester County, exactly. Each of these compliance reviews that you see have literally followed the precedent that was set by Westchester County. You people are the pace setter. You are the trend makers right here in Westchester County. Well, HUD intervened in 2009, and they said the Westchester has to go beyond the provisions in the court settlement. They said 750 homes is only a start point. Low-income homes needed to be near above-average schools. They couldn't just be anywhere. They had to be near the better schools. Landlords couldn't question the source of renters' income. Now, there's plenty of laws that say you can question the source of a renter's income, but HUD makes its own rules. So they decided that nobody gets to question source of income. Can you imagine somebody comes walking up with a wad of bills and says, I'm going to pay? And you're a landlord, and you have no idea where this guy came from, no idea where the money came, and you have no authority to ask. Do you know that President Obama now has extended those same rights to criminals? That they can now do the same, so they break out of jail, they're able to do this. Can that hold until we thank you very much. And the lost local planning authority to a court-appointed monitor. This is the person that George was talking about just a few moments ago. That court-appointed monitor has become more aggressive over the years. I think one of the first things the court-appointed monitor did, he was given a certain period of time that he had to serve in that capacity. Well, they immediately extended it. They said, well, we can't be here now. It's going to take us longer to do this job. Well, $1,000 an hour, wouldn't you like to extend your gig? Well, that's kind of what he's doing. Well, in that particular case, Westchester County HUD decision that came out on September 25th of last year, they were never able to prove discrimination against Westchester County. There was no discrimination. Though HUD was bent and determined on proving discrimination, they were never able to do that because there was none. But they did agree they failed to affirmatively further fair housing. Now that's not particularly hard, as we'll discuss in just a moment. It's real easy to say that you have failed to affirmatively further fair housing. Well, basically because there's no real concrete definition of affirmatively furthering fair housing. So it's kind of a floating, a moving target. They had to return $28 million to HUD and must spend approximately $30 million on building affordable housing. So, and there's many other provisions in there. So for HUD, this was a huge win. It began to set the baseline for a way that they could now enforce something that had never particularly been enforced before. In 2016, by July 2016, HUD approved a new ruling called AFFH. The term, affirmatively furthering fair housing, is nothing new. That's been around since the 60s. It's been around forever. It hasn't been enforced as it is today for a very simple reason. There are 1,209 HUD entitlement communities in America that receive community development block grant money. How are you going to police all of those? In addition to this, there are over 3,000 different public housing authorities that receive money. How are you going to police all of these? Well, they didn't have a way until the Westchester case.